Yeah.
You don't wanna have that concern like the rest of us do?
He does.
I don't know what I did to earn it. Well,
Yeah.
we're far away.
So maybe just before the meeting gets started, we'll introduce a motion to.
I'm here.
Oh, thank you, let's wait. I'll invariably call the one short. Let's go ahead. We'll hold off. Great. I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Board of Education to order. It is 7:35. If you could please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you very much. And now for one of my favorite parts of the meeting, which is a report from our student representative. The pressure is on.
Yeah, it's just me tonight. Grace.
Oh, I'm sorry, public session. I was so anxious to get to you, bro. But second favorite part. All right. So the first part would be the public participation, and anybody in the audience or online who would like to speak is welcome to come up, state your name, and address, and we can go from there.
Yep, we just ask if you're online and you'd like to speak, to raise your hand, you'll be called upon. If you're in person, state your name and address, and we do limit comments to 3 minutes. And it should not be expected that the board or administration will respond to comments at this time, but you can be contacted to follow up with your request. So do we have anyone in person who would like to speak at this time? Yes, come on up. We moved the table, but you could just. Hang up there.
Stand out. Okay, great. Thank you again for letting me be here. So again, my name is Tiffany McGee. I'm from 96 Sandalwood, and my daughter attends Daniel Hand High School. I recently found out about their policy that each person can use the bathroom that align with their gender identity. I have much compassion for students who are confused about their gender. I believe that providing a unisex bathroom for their use is a great solution. However, allowing biological males to use the female restroom, in my opinion, is not a good solution. I want my daughter to feel safe and comfortable at school. Sharing a bathroom with a biological male is not a situation that I want her to be in. I emailed Dr. Cook with my concerns. He said that Daniel Hand has hall monitors outside of every bathroom to ensure that everyone is safe. However, I told him that as a woman, I would still feel uncomfortable sharing a restroom with the biological male, whether there was a hall monitor outside or not. A restroom is a very private place. A female should not have to deal with the presence of a male in their restroom. An even bigger problem I have with Daniel Hand allowing students to use the bathroom that aligns with their gender identity is the affirmation that the public school is giving to the idea that males can become females and females can become males. Affirmation of that gender ideology is controversial at best and dangerous at worst. YouTube is filled with videos of detransitioners telling their heartbreaking stories of botched surgeries or the regret they have for making a decision they can never change. One story is of a female named Jalissa who had gender affirming surgery, removing all her female reproductive organs. And she did that when she was 18. Years later, she said, "I can't have kids. I'm left to accept the scraps of the life I could have had. I could have had a full life, which now I need to mourn. I was young, I was sad, I was impressionable, and I thought this would fix everything. It's just so bad. There's no fixing this. There's no making it better. I don't see a path or a way to go forward. As a woman who thought I was trans, I went all the way, as far as I could go. And then I woke up realizing I made the biggest mistake of my life. This woman, I believe, was a victim of gender affirming care. The public school should not support an ideology that can cause such pain and devastation to a young person." Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online who would like to speak? Is there anyone else in person who would like to speak? Okay. There you go.
All right, thank you. Perfect. The floor is yours.
So it's just me tonight, like I was saying. Well, Grace is at soccer, so I'll be taking her place. So looking back in the back of the week, the PSATs took place for 10th and 11th graders, and I was told that they went really smoothly. Thankfully, I didn't have to participate in them this year, and there's no technical mishaps with the computers or anything, which is always, I know, an issue, a worry for most. Also, the athletic department is thriving, which is no surprise. Not only are we continuing to win, but also we have really great sportsmanship, and I think this is back to back that we are able to receive the Michaels Cup in the CIAC, and this is just a sportsmanship award that is recognized to only a couple schools in Connecticut, so it's a great honor, especially having it twice in a row is probably like not really heard of. Looking beyond in this upcoming week, the 10th is already the midpoint of trimester 1. I feel like I just started senior year, so I can't even wrap my head around it. And then on Thursday is a mental health wellness event. So this is basically to celebrate National Mental Health Awareness Day. And there's going to be a lot of student choice throughout the day and a lot of breakout sessions to kind of celebrate or be aware in whatever way they want. I will hopefully be taking the cooking therapy thing, so that'll be really fun. And if it goes well, they're hoping to make this like a tradition, doing it again this spring, and if everything runs smoothly. Another tradition that we're kind of starting up again is the German exchange students. They're coming on Friday, and this is the second year in a row that they're coming. It's a really well received experience. Everyone who's participated has thought it was great, and I'm really happy to have them back again. That'll be soon. And then next week, on Tuesday, is a parent conferences, which students are so happy about because it's a half day. So I know everyone's excited for that little break. And then even more beyond, information for homecoming just came out, and this is going to be on the November 2nd this year, which is a bit later than usual, but I'm sure it's going to be just as well attended, and it's going to be just as fun as always. And then I know you all know about the Blue Ribbon Award, but a lot of students, we didn't know if the students would actually know how like great this award was, but there's been such good student feedback, and there's like an episode on Tiger Talk about it, so a lot of people kind of actually know what it is. And to kind of push this even further, we're in the process of planning a way to celebrate for the students, maybe like a pep rally or something, but there's more to come on that soon. So, awesome.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments for Brooke?
I have a question. So a little off topic, but when you are in like I forget what they're called, they're not PA at the high school, but they're
Advisory.
the advisory.
Yeah.
So I know you have like led activities, but what has been your experience at the high school regarding students' cell phone use?
Cell phone use. So this year is kind of the second year they kind of put the stricter policy on. I think last year no one really followed it, if I'm being honest, but this year they implemented it a lot more. And at least in my experience, I know I'm taking a lot of harder classes, so that might also contribute to the fact, like, to what I'm seeing, but it seems to be working really well this year. A lot of teachers have had them put their phones on their desks at the beginning of class, and you can't take it until the end of class, so it avoids people like going to the bathroom and taking their phone and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of, everyone thinks it's pretty fair. Obviously, teenagers want to use their phone, but they understand that they have to have some balance. So having it during the hallway time and having it during passing period and lunch, I think people are satisfied with the amount of phone use that they can have during the day.
And what do you see at lunch? Do you see most kids just on their phones, or are you seeing a lot of social interaction?
Well, in my experience, I do orchestra, so I only have 25 minutes of lunch. So definitely my group, we're eating and talking during that 25 minutes. But I think some students that have like the full hour, I'm sure that there's probably more cell phone use, but I'm just not in that environment to really know for sure.
Thank you. I was just curious, what your experience has been. I have heard that it's stricter policy this year.
Yeah.
And with alignment with our policy. And I just wanted to see if you're seeing that and how the students were reacting to it.
No, from last year to this year is definitely, it's being enforced a lot more, and I don't see many people disagreeing with it, or maybe not disagreeing with it, but going against it. So
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Next up is Dr. Cook's report as superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Galen. I wanted to introduce the board to Joshua Stanovich. Joshua joins us in the technology department, and he's here tonight working with Zoe's. So we make sure we have a backup for technology and running board meetings. And Josh is doing a lot of work with the website and other aspects of the technology department. In the board's packet tonight is October 1 enrollment. So as the board is aware, the official count for the State Department of Education we submit is every October 1. We are pretty much on schedule in terms of what was predicted. You will see, as we've talked a few times, that kindergarten was a little lower than we had been projected only at Ryerson, though, interestingly enough. Jeffrey has 100 kindergartners this year, and Ryerson is, under 70. And so we, saw a little bit less than we had expected. So we do have some smaller class sizes. We did have many families go through that process. So we're not thinking there's going to be a huge jump next year, but we will certainly be tracking that. But as I said, we were right on projections, and we're starting to see, the elementary grades get, higher enrollment as we continue to decline, pretty much at the bottom of that decline at the high school, where we're at right now. We'll continue to keep the board updated on enrollment as we go through the school year. Just a quick update on the calendar. As the board knows, we took the April break off the 25-26 calendar because we had found out that the learn area, and so we work within the learn area for our school calendar to do our best to be in conjunction with the districts around us. We know what a major disruption that can be if we have a different spring break or different breaks than those districts around us, not only for athletics and families, when we have teachers that live in a different district than ours, or vice versa. So it can be very disruptive for us. So we will look to get an answer from the learn area, which week they are. We've taken it off, as I said, just the spring break portion, and have not received any concerns. We've spread that information out, and we'll finalize that as soon as we can. If it is a change, we'll come back to the board. If it's the same, we'll notify the board and continue on with the already approved board calendar. And one more note, we're going to turn this over to our facilities director and construction manager. But I just wanted to clarify a comment I had made last board meeting on Ryerson PTO. I had indicated that they were working on spending down funds. They are spending funds certainly for this school year, but their intention is to send some funds on when the new school configuration comes in. So they will be sharing, a good start as they move on and their students move on to Brown School. And very similar story for Jeffrey from my understanding as well. So just wanted to make sure that there was no misunderstanding in terms of how that was working. And we are thrilled, as we said at that meeting, and we always say about the support from our PTOs for our schools and the experiences they give our students. So thank you to the Ryerson PTO. And we're excited to share with you. I'll ask Peter and Ben to come forward. I believe the board has met Ben Whitaker, our new construction manager. If not, this is not as a group. Ben. And everyone knows Peter Anderson by now. But we are really excited about the changes to the Polson project that have occurred over really the last month, spearheaded by Peter and Ben. And they've done some work with the building committee for that and have that approval, and I know they presented to the board of selectmen, and so we are in a really good place and really exciting work, and we asked them to come forward tonight and share where we're at.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. Let me give you kind of a really high-level brief view of what was going on with the Polson project. As you know, the Polson project was designed to revamp the auditorium and provide a brand new HVAC system into the school, therefore providing cooling to the entire building. That was one of our #1 goals. Upon soliciting our construction manager and going through with our Colliers, which is our owner's rep, our numbers were coming in roughly $9 million over budget, which was making this task virtually impossible. With Ben coming on board and conversations occurring between the two of us, Ben came up with this, or Ben was really no pun intended, the architect of this plan. And he revamped this entire project, where not only are we achieving the goal of cooling 100% of the building, but we're also adding in a few extra bonus projects with the possibility of removing the roof of the entire replacement of the roof out of the SIP and into this line item. it's roughly a $6 million savings versus a $9 million deficit. So what's happening is we are gonna be completely revamping and abating the auditorium, which was really getting pared down to almost nothing. We will be completely revamping the gymnasium with sanded new floors. I'm gonna let him get into details on this. I don't wanna take his thunder away. And then we'll be air conditioning the entire building. There was a pleasant surprise that was discovered just recently on the rooftop units, and we're not getting into too much detail. It really showed us that we have a system that is providing a fresh air mix into the school. So we're not just, we're keeping the existing ventilation system, but that ventilation system turns out to be much better than we thought. So with that, I'm gonna let Ben take it over, and he's gonna explain to you the important phases of the project and how we can, off the back end, save something if there's something that falls out and goes over budget. So with that, Ben Whitaker, I'll let you take over.
Thank you. First of all, nice to meet everybody and see everybody in one place. I've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of you individually, but like I said, I haven't presented as a group yet. So thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to present what we're calling the recalibrated Polson Middle School Improvements Program or project here. So just a little bit more history before we get into where we're headed. So as Peter explained, the goal of this project was to air condition the whole school and make some improvements to the auditorium. That's what the referendum was based off of. But when that project went into the design and execution, or the execution of the design, what it became was essentially gutting the HVAC system that existed in the school and starting from scratch. So basically taking the existing footprint of the school, acting like nothing existed, and putting in a brand new HVAC system. Fine to do. That's certainly one way to approach it. But again, we were left with close to a $30 million project with $21 million to pay for it. So what do? It started going through a value engineering process. When Gilbane was brought on board, they were instrumental in starting to do this value engineering. And what that means is you start to scrape pieces of the project out or reconfigure pieces until you get to something you could afford. Throughout that process, a lot of the things that were really critical pieces of the project from the beginning, such as restoring the auditorium and providing cooling in the gymnasium, those types of things were getting lost, and it was being done because we were putting in this system that required scrapping everything that existed now and what I would call major surgery to the building. So we want to look at this in a little bit different way, because anytime you spend money on a building, especially $20 million on a building, the customers of the building occupants, the community, you expect a change in the look and feel of that building. And for $21 million, we really weren't getting that at all. We said, how do we organize a slate of projects that will really change how that building, how the customers of that building interact with it? How do we do the most good? How do we use that $21 million to go to the most good, not only for the physical plant, but for the people that actually use the building? So we started looking at this a little bit different direction. One thing was we go to a 1-for-1 replacement of the 50% of the building that's cooled already, approximately 50% of the school. Instead of changing that entire system, we're just going to replace the system with similar units, obviously new. The ones up there now, about 30 years old, they're past the end of their useful life. And two is adding air conditioning to the portions of the building that aren't fully cooled right now, but simplifying that system. We have in the design now what's called a ductless split VRF system. So if you think about the type of system you may have in your house, where you have a small outdoor unit and an indoor head kind of hangs on the wall, it's a commercial version of those. They're usually done through ceiling cassettes, so not on the wall, they're overhead. And the outdoor unit services between 10 and 15 classrooms instead of 1-to-1. So you're not going to have these condensers all over the outside of the building. The downfall of that system gives you great control, gives you nice, cool buildings. Just went through a project where we put 250 of these into a district. You are not changing the ventilation. The building is still ventilated. It's ventilating the way it has ventilated since the 50s and 60s when these wings were built. But you're not changing the way the building is ventilated. Or those portions are ventilated. You're just getting cooling. What that does is that knocks it down. So we were looking at, say out of that $30 million, about 29 of that was going towards this HVAC system. So you spend $29 million, you get an air conditioned school. This way, we're spending about 5 and getting a fully air conditioned school. That 50% of the building, as Peter mentioned, that's air conditioned now, has a modern ventilation system. It's doing its thing. It's operating just fine. It's providing the fresh air it was designed to provide. No reason to really change that. No reason to just throw all that out. So there are a couple other reasons to start to go down this approach, and I'll walk you through all the projects. But just another reason to do a phased project approach versus this major surgery, and that's the impact to the building. So when I came on board in July, the conversation was really surrounding, do we shut this building down for an entire year? Do we move everybody out and do this project? Or do we phase it over the course of 2 or 3 summers where you're constantly mobilizing, demobilizing, and remobilizing, which is extremely expensive to do? Or are we doing a lot of this, anytime you phase an occupied building, you're going to have issues with again, the customer experience. So we said, how can we do this with disrupting the operation as little as possible? So the plan that we have now is a 4-year slate of sub projects where we try to maximize the benefit of this funding to address not only providing cooling to all the educational spaces, but renewing the building envelope, that's the roof and the windows, and fully renovating community and school use spaces like the gym and the auditorium, not just HVAC, actually making it look and feel like a new space. Abating all the hazardous building materials in both of those locations, as well as flooring and select ceiling areas in the school, and refreshing the classrooms. So it's a diverse mix of projects. Think of it as we made a 4-year capital plan, like we would do for an entire district or portfolio for just this building. Some of the benefits of this approach: the school is kept fully functional during the school year, no moving of students and staff necessary during the duration of the 4-year plan. Also, and we'll walk through the spreadsheet of how these costs layer on top of each other, unanticipated cost increases in conditions to one individual project early on or in the plan doesn't stop the entire project plan. Downstream projects can just be rescaled, postponed, or changed as necessary. So for example, right now, we had $21 million. We designed a project, it was 30. That means stop, you're not doing anything. With this, year 1 is about $11 million. We'll get into the years. We know we could afford that. We get year 1 done, we move into year 2. If year 1 ends up being more expensive than we thought it was going to be, that's just less money for years 2, 3, and 4, but it doesn't stop the whole train. We're still improving the building. In the meantime, we might just have to reconfigure projects or move projects out downstream. Another really important one that this leverages the existing design work that's already been done. So we've, again, in the project financials, but we spent about $1.2 million or encumbered $1.2 million in this project. We don't want to throw that design work away. So we want to use the existing project team and have them fully engaged into year 1. So years 2 through 4, we could run internally just like we would any other capital projects within our department. But year 1 keeps that team together. Next bullet point was we're keeping that team and we bring in additional support for specific projects down the road. But right now, the team that we brought on to do this $30 million project basically just gets reconfigured down to more like an $11 million project. We've had that conversation with Colliers, who's the project owner's project manager or project rep, Gilbane, who's the construction manager, and BL, who's the designer. We've had all those conversations with them separately. And then we just reinvigorated the team working together. We're starting to meet every 2 weeks, and I'll get through that on implementation. So everybody is on board. They realize the projects, their piece of the project is going to be much smaller, but it's something, and it's actually going to happen, which is the important part. Very important, the projects are within the parameters of these existing approved referendum language. So we're able to actually execute these, which is always good. Several of these projects take advantage of state school construction grants on an individual project basis. So we've included those in the financials. And at the end of the 4 years, the building has a new feel and doesn't require heavy capital investment for 7 to 10 years. So think from a taxpayer perspective, somebody hears we're putting $20 million into a school, they don't expect 2 years later, we're putting another 5, which we'd have to do with the roof. So this is giving us a building now where we won't have that intensive capital demand for at least 7 years. So in your packet, you have kind of a quick and dirty spreadsheet that has a budget analysis on it. My brain is 25% finance, so I always start with the numbers. And just wanted to kind of get a handle, because there's been a lot of moving pieces with the referendum, especially within the separate projects. So referendum package was $89 million, and it included several projects, but what was allocated to Polson was about 21.5 million. Now, 3.485 of that was moved over to Neck River to handle possible cost increases in that project, but it's looking right now that money could possibly come back to the Polson project. But for the sake of this, I've taken this money off. The revised referendum budget, what I'm calling it, is about $18 million. So as part of this 4-year plan, there was a separate project that was in our capital plan to put in a full building generator at Polson, in one step in towards making it an emergency shelter, and also covering the cost of a lot of the electrical infrastructure that's necessary to put in the additional cooling. So we pushed that money into this overall budget, $3.1 million. 1.5 of that is grants. That makes a gross budget of 21.2. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we've encumbered $1.2 million in non-construction costs thus far, leaving us with a budget of just under $20 million remaining. If we add in from the original project budget about $1.6 million of non-construction costs, that gives us $18.3 million, including escalation, contingency, and the full amount of the generator SIP funds as our construction budget. Now, if we're fortunate enough to have the 3.485 move back from Neck River, that gives us an overall potential construction budget of $21,786, so $21,786,000. So that's where we started with building this project list, is that as an available budget. So, absolutely good. I need a drink anyway.
Okay. So none of this went out to bid, correct? So when Collier designed it, nothing went out to bid, correct?
There were individual solicitations for the design team and for the construction manager to manage the process, but none of this actual work has gone out.
And that was based on the $30 million, correct?
The $30 million were the estimates that were coming in the pre-construction phase. Yep. So nothing went out to bid because we're nowhere near the.
So how does Gilbane get the job?
So they were hired as we actually, you mentioned that. So we don't have a contract with Gilbane right now.
Right.
Gilbane came on board. They were selected as the construction manager for the gross project, so to speak.
By who? By Collier?
No, that would have been awarded by the.
It was a bid process.
Yeah.
Oh.
The building committee for the project.
And that would go to the Board of Selectmen. I'm sorry, that was before my time here, but they were.
It just seems, honestly, I don't know, I mean, I do this for a living, but it just seems like Gilbane got the Neck River school job, and then Gilbane gets this without any scope.
Same process was used for this
Yeah, it's
project
crazy.
as the new school.
But there's no scope.
No, but the same process to select Gilbane was used for this as it was for the new school.
Right.
So they went through a competitive process.
But if we're changing the scope from 30 million to 21 million, that's a $9 million differential.
So
Things would be so different.
So that's not, that's a misunderstanding. So the budget for the project was 23 million. Money was moved from this project to the Neck River project, which left us with 21 million to do the cooling and the auditorium.
Yeah.
The cost came in at around $30 million is what they told us for basically that's been explained, the cooling portion of it. So we were gonna have to, I had shared with the building committee that my kind of take out of this, from my perspective was we had to do the auditorium. So I think that was along with the total budget, along with everything else, caused a lot of relooking at this. We were fortunate in that meantime, in that
It was
time
9 million
to
over.
hire
I know
Ben.
that.
It wasn't,
I
you know, as Ben said, it probably was not going to happen. You know, we presented to the school, when we presented to the Board of Selectmen, the response was, you know, thank you, Ben, for kind of taking a new look at this, because
Right.
he had a new look. Peter was, you know, working on his portions of the job, and so I think that that's what led us to today. And will accomplish.
Yeah, I think I
Right.
understand your question. though, 'cause
You,
what-
thank
yeah,
you.
'cause what
So-
you're talking about from a procurement angle, you're
I
saying
am.
Gilbane was brought on board.
Based on a $30 million budget.
No, they actually, no, what was advertised in the RFP was actually a $15 million budget at the time.
For that
So they had-
specific HVAC
For
work.
it was listed as, again, this was before my time, but it was HVAC improvements, auditorium improvements with a potential GMP gross maximum price of a little under 15 million.
Right.
So now what we're talking about is still HVAC improvements, more auditorium improvements and a potential GMP of closer to 10 or
Right,
11.
but the HVAC improvements are $5 million.
No.
Isn't
Yeah,
it?
but we're-
Now,
We're the scope for year one that we routed through,
Is 11.
potentially routed through the construction manager, is
Yes.
11 million, and those are the projects I'll get
But
into in
you-
a second.
but 5 million is based on HVAC.
Yeah, there's,
Yes, that's a huge differential.
It's a different project.
I know, that's
Yes,
my
right.
point, is that, so I kind of think that you have to then go out to bid. We already spent $1.2 million. What's the breakdown of that? That's a lot of money.
yeah, that's encumbered right now, so that's not all.
I know.
So.
I'd love a breakdown of what we spent $1.2 million on.
Project there.
Do you
They'll
see?
provide that to me, but as
Yeah.
Ben said, it's encumbered, not spent. It was in the process of being designed. We did a lot of design work on it.
Right.
And that's what led us to the cost.
Right.
Just to expand that, the $15 million that was originally in the RFP solicitation was HVAC, electrical, auditorium.
Yep.
So if we go through the list of these projects, which was gonna be my next step here, we're looking at HVAC, an extra million in the gym, but 3 million of electrical, $2.7 million in auditorium. So it's 15 versus 11. That's what, but it's still the same categories of work.
Right,
Could you go out to RFP again? Sure.
Then why
That-
wouldn't we?
That wouldn't be, I don't know if you'll get a different result. Because again, they were proposing on a CM markup and pre-construction rates with a potential GMP of 15. I mean, again, that's a decision for the building committee. It doesn't matter to me personally if we go out to RFP again or not. I just want to work you guys through the project.
what year was that done? So I guess how many years back is this?
Within the last year, yeah.
Spring,
The overruns came out about what, June?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right before, sorry. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be difficult at all, but you see my point when it comes to, I mean, you start up here and then we're here. And then we're going from $11 million on a prospective HVAC. I know all about these VRFs and all that fun stuff. And then you go to a $5 million that it just, and it's great that we can use the same mechanical system, right, is what we're using. But we're just changing units out, correct?
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if I walked through
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
projects and then you could,
Yeah,
I just,
Thank
cause I don't wanna
no,
address those
no.
points and then go back and like talk about
Yeah.
some of them. So year one has 5 projects that would be rolled into one execution phase with the existing design team. So project number 1 is installing the VRF ductless split systems in the areas of the buildings that are not currently cooled. So we're doing this, we estimated 45 spaces at 30,000 a space. That number actually may go down a little bit. We're walking through, we finally started reinvigorating our design to move over to this type of system. We actually might be closer to about 30 spaces. So again, these are high level budget numbers that I started putting together after 4 weeks of experience in the district, and we've been refining them almost daily. But good conservative number that's based on projects that I've been involved in the past few years. Project number 2 is to replace the HVAC in spaces currently cooled. So again, these are in-kind replacements for the systems that are in the portions of the building that are already cooled. We have 12 penthouses up there. about 82,000 total CFM. We carry $2.9 million. That find that Peter was talking about a few minutes ago was when the designers were first brought on board. They were looking at, again, like a clean slate. What would you do if you had this box and you were going to design a new HVAC system for it? They didn't spend a lot of time documenting the existing conditions in the building. I got up on the roof last week and just started poking around in a bunch of places and found that that's where we found that the type of system up there was actually that existed was not what we were thinking it originally was. And it actually was a system that is perfectly functioning. It actually would be less expensive potentially than that $3 million. But for the sake of putting budget numbers together, that's a good place to be right now. Second is the main gym renovation. So this is adding a rooftop unit for cooling and heating in there. It's actually not going to be a rooftop. It's going to be sitting on a roof next to the gym. So rooftop, but not the gym's rooftop. Refurbishing the flooring, putting new bleachers in, lighting and miscellaneous work to really have a showpiece for the community there. Very important, the electrical upgrades and the generator. Again, this money is going to be covered by the SIP funds that were pulled into this project. What we're trying to do is maximize that grant. So as much of that work to the main electrical infrastructure in that building, we want to push into grant eligible work. So we're working with the town operations department with that, who spearheaded the grant for emergency shelter purposes.
Question, we
well-
definitely have that grant, the town definitely has that grant, or is
I
that
don't-
pending?
There's 1 million of 1.5 that I know about that's in hand right
I
now.
think it's pending, but maybe we should have them finish up the presentation and then we'll go into detailed questions.
So again, that's all the main electrical infrastructure. So that is the building service. All the electrical distribution that would go out to new air conditioning units would be handled on line one. The nice thing about replacing in kind for the spaces that are currently cooled, very limited electrical work needed there. And last but not least is the auditorium renovation. So during the value engineering process, that project was kind of butchered all the way down to, I think we were just new seating at one point. This is a full renovation of the space where it's flooring, it's abating the asbestos flooring in there, seating, lighting, both house and production, addition of air conditioning to the system there, to the HVAC system there, refurbishing the stage, and all audio visual. So really making that the showpiece auditorium for the community. So that's year one, which as of now is proposed to be executed with the existing project team. Then when we call that year one, that's actually not one summer's worth of work. A lot of this work we could actually do while the school is occupied with very limited disruption. For example, and we are starting the process of playing around with different ways to package this and schedule this. The VRF project did it at my last district. We did the entire project on second shift. So literally no interruption to the schools at all. They would come in one day, oh, I got an air conditioner in my room. So that there are many different ways we could slice this. We would, and by construction year one, the big push where obviously we have to do a lot of the abatement work and any of the more invasive work over the summer, it would be summer of 26. Though we would probably do, not probably, we would have to do an early procurement package to secure long lead time items like a generator, for example. Depending on the style of generator, is a minimum a year out. Switch gear is still hard to get, and that could be a year to a year and a half. But the first year of big construction push would be 26. Dr. Cook has been promised Polson will remain untouched this summer. It will be off because with this plan, it would be offline for the next several summers. The Polson are the only school in the district next summer where there's no major activity happening. So we'd like to keep one place so we can have summer school and not be disrupted. When we get into years 2 through 4, again, these look and feel more like kind of regular everyday capital projects you do in a school district. So 2, huge customer impact sounds very simple. It's a large project, and that's abating all the existing asbestos tile flooring in the building and replacing it with either VCT or carpet tile, depending on the space. Eligible for school construction grant reimbursement. I carry 25%. Our current reimbursement rate for this type of work is 29.29. The state always seems to find something that's ineligible, so I carry 25 to be on the safe side for that. So our out-of-pocket cost, our local share, as I call it, would be a little over $1 million. That same year is the year we would do the roof. Again, state school construction grant project, roofing prices have been all over the map lately. Right now, they're a little more favorable than they were last year, especially the year before. Carried $40 a square foot for that. And we're looking at about $5.9 million with a local share of 4.4. That project is currently in the SIP for fiscal year 33. That roof is never going to last to fiscal year 33. I was up there last week. It's in the SIP right now for 5.1. Obviously, this goes through, that moves out of the SIP. Moving to year 3, now we start to get into some more kind of pretty work, as we call it. This is ceilings and lighting in common areas, huge customer impact. I've done this at several schools over the years. People walk in, they think they're in a new school. This is doing all the pads, the acoustical ceiling pads in the building. Areas that don't have grids would get new ceiling grids, or if they have dated ones. Also putting in the latest and greatest of LED lighting. Moving into, or also in year 3, another big project would be window replacement in the building. That is now eligible through the state school construction grant process, both labor and materials. They used to pay for materials, but not labor, which is kind of weird. Used a per linear foot price for a project done over the past few years, a particular number for that. I said this when we talked to the Board of Selectmen. If any number is too high in this budget, it's that number. That building, I was basing it on square footage, but it has so much interior space, so I was able to pull some out there and add that to that HVAC line. So that has been a change since this went to the Board of Selectmen, is we reconfigured those 2 lines just to be more accurate. Year 4, these are high impact, but relatively simple projects. One are classroom refreshes. So this is something I put into place about 7 years ago, where I noticed that you went into a lot of schools, even ones that had a decent amount of capital investment over the years, but you go into a classroom, the classroom looked like 1955 still. And that's where the kids are spending their whole day. And it hadn't been painted in 25 years. It still had the old flooring. It would have an exposed ceiling grid or a very early generation of an acoustical grid. So what we do in these scenarios where we'd go in there, we give the thing a full paint job. We do put blinds in there. Any of the rooms that have millwork. So at Brown, we just did a huge project putting in new millwork in all the classrooms. Kind of a budget-friendly way of doing that is you replace the cabinet doors. And then you paint the cabinets. You'd be surprised how nice that looks when it's done. Put LED lighting in there. Flooring would be handled through the flooring project, and we're budgeting 50 spaces at about $13K a room. That could go up or down. Again, that's 4 years out. And last is simple finish off the painting, full building exterior. Classrooms will have already been done by that point, or full building interior. Classrooms already done by that point, and we're carrying about $2 a square foot for that. So when you add all that up, the total for the 4 years is 23.5 gross with 20 million local share. So with a potential construction budget of 21.7, that would actually put us on a gross basis at this point, a shortfall of 1.7. But if we were successful in securing the grants, and all of these are non-priority list grants, there really is no reason you wouldn't get these grants through the state. We would actually have a surplus of $1 million. So right now, the focus is year 1. The way to look at that swing between the 1 million surplus and the 1.7 shortfall is to say this kind of passes the smell test as a good way forward. We can always alter years 2 through 4 as we go. But right now, the priority is, like I said, leveraging that project team and getting year 1 up and running.
So if I could summarize, we're looking at a reduction of cost, bring it under budget. Much better HVAC coverage, Olson. Better customer experience for the town and the auditorium and for the classroom refresh. We'll try to minimize disruption to students and staff. We'll try to maximize the use of grants.
And also adding in the roof and another project to the gym, which was not planned in the scope.
Okay.
So your only space in here that wouldn't be cooled is your auxiliary gym. That's one that was not added back
In the locker.
So
Yeah.
I have a question, statement, problem. So the original referendum was that Polson was gonna get HVAC throughout the entire building.
No, some
No?
improvements and upgrades to Polson School.
Okay, so it's been a minute.
Yeah,
since
no,
I've
it's
seen
totally-
the original
I agree.
document,
No.
that thing was like 100 million pages long.
Yep.
And I apologize for not being,
No, that's a great
Comment.
question. That's the
But-
first thing we looked at.
but yeah,
Yeah.
because, like, my understanding was, and I think it was because of the limitations of money, that we were focusing on the HVAC and the auditorium. And then there was the problems with abatement, and there was problems with the ductwork, and there was problems,
Electric.
all sorts of problems. And then, the town was getting a grant to help cover the electrical, because they want to use it as a shelter as well as the generator. Correct? So, and I am not aware of where they are with that movement, if we have secured the grant, if it's in the works, or how that's gonna go. But based on our past experience with trying to get grants for like HVAC from the state, it's been, we could get it, we're not getting it. We might get it, we still might get it, but a lot less, not as much as we thought, now really a lot less than we thought. And it's kind of like a moving target because it's not locked in. So one of my concerns is counting on the grant money if we're not certain how much we'll get, when we'll get it, if they're gonna change the parameters of the grant, or if for some reason we're not gonna meet the parameters that we thought we were. So that's, and I'm not sure, I know part of it is addressed in here, because I think the one line you had, you said you just were carrying the full cost now on that first line about adding cooling to all the classrooms not currently cooled. So I see that. So there's a possibility then that number could be less.
It could, but I wouldn't,
You wouldn't
like you
count
said, so right now, there are no future rounds of HVAC grants being announced.
Okay, so-
They just said they're paused, so I wouldn't budget for one.
So that was one that we thought we could get a grant, and then now we're not. So we're gonna carry that.
Yeah, I don't know what was thought before, but yeah.
Well, who knows what they're
this-
doing up.
Yeah, I wasn't, I certainly wouldn't carry one for that. On the town side for the generator, 1 million of that 1.5, to best of my knowledge, is secured, like it's approved, like we're ready to move with it. The other 5 was from, remember what that was through, but I think that's the one that isn't fully secured,
Okay,
so that would be important to secure that.
but the referendum does say it's for total improvements. Okay, and then, so. The question I have then is the roof replacement, like we had it pushed out in CIP to 33, and you went up there and said, there's no way it's gonna last that long. And I'm just wondering, like, when was the last time anyone went up on the roof to see this? If we had it in our CIP out to 33? Like, I'm just wondering, and it's not directed at anyone here, it's just like,
No, I think that's another good question. We are looking at all our roofs. I think Peter and Ben are, have a lot of experience in this. They've both been with us for a short amount of time. They've been up on Daniel Hand roof a lot of times as well. I know that's not our discussion today, but that's a project that they are concerned where that's placed in the CIP. So we're looking at that as we go forward as well. But yeah, they clearly indicated to us that that's a concern. And I will say we're gonna potentially have to look at CIP very soon, because we've been asked by the town just today to have another look at our CIP because the number's too high. So we're sitting here with an opportunity to remove the Polson roof off the CIP, which we have no chance of moving it up. So that this is a great opportunity for us.
So.
no, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess my other question would be, when we arrived at that $30 million figure, which we're not at anymore, then how did no one go on the roof like you did, right? And realize, I'm not blaming anyone at all, just want to be clear. How did no one realize that the existing HVAC system that was in place, which brings the fresh air in, et cetera, was usable, and it did not have to be a complete haul?
I
Like-
have no idea.
Thank you.
But.
Okay. That's one. I'm not-
Before you move on, it's not a thank you. I think we have to understand what the project was.
I'm not,
So the project, the existing cooling to the building, what's on the roof right now,
yes,
cools about 40% of the
Yes.
building. We were adding the other 60%
Yes, but-
on top.
but
So
you
there was
were
nothing there
redoing
right-
the
Well,
whole.
let me finish though. There was nothing there right now.
Mhm.
So in order for us to have that cool the rest of the building, Ben said they had to do major surgery and bring in ductwork. That's why it was 30 million. We are not doing that going forward. We would do the split units, which would
Yeah.
just be not major surgery.
But
So
how do
there's-
we not know that?
It's not,
That
we
you
didn't know
could
the
do that.
price.
No, that you
No.
don't do that.
We always knew we could do that. The preference was at the time to do full new HVAC. But until we got a price of $30 million, we didn't know.
I'm speculating completely,
Yes.
but I think
Yeah.
the reason why, because when I talked to the mechanical engineer last week, once we finally got this back into, let's start talking about design again. You know, I brought up to what I saw up there and I'm like, and they were like, yeah, we didn't really fully realize that either, because their charge was add air conditioning to this places that don't have it. And then make it all a uniform system that works together. So what they were designing for the new wings, the latest and greatest with DOAS units and all that kind of stuff. They were overlaying that over the entire building.
Right.
So they were like, again, their charge, I don't know how they got their charge, but it's a reasonable charge to say, we want a brand new HVAC system in this building. So they're like, okay, scrap that. We're putting the latest and greatest in. And we're gonna have uniformity and one building control system and all that kind of stuff. So once you start splitting it apart, it becomes a whole different thing.
Yeah.
They never really cared about what was there existing.
And how do you do the roof? How do you put rooftop units on when the roof is not right?
So that was, but no, I'm actually glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. So one of the things that, before I started here, I was looking at the plans on this job. And I remember going, how old is the roof? And it was like, I think it was 21 years old or something like that. And I forgot what the number was, but like 35% of the roof was actually gonna get removed to put in all these new rooftop units and new roof right around the new units put in. And I'm like, but you're gonna leave the other 65%. So, but again, when the charge was to put in new HVAC, period, it's almost like you don't see the forest through the trees at that
Right.
point, you know, so it's funny you said that, because that was like,
Yeah, wow.
yeah.
And I'll take that.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I have a couple of questions and a statement. So I think one of the issues that I have, I think, is that a lot of this stuff is happening. It's outside of us because it's the building committee. And I feel like they probably need to come and report to us. Now, I know that you sit in on it, and so does Seth. But I feel like they are our committee, essentially. And like all of our committees, we have a report in our meetings. So I'm not saying they need to come to every meeting, but I think that maybe they need to start coming to some to give us a more updated report of exactly what's going on, because I feel like we're sort of getting hit with this, like, what is going on? And it's like news to us. And this is sort of like overlapping facilities and CIP and the referendum. And it's like, that's a lot. And, you know, some of us are on CIP and some of us are on facilities. And then there's the new building committee, which is sort of outside of that. And the rest of it gets reported to us every meeting, right? Facilities reports, pretty much CIP with finance. And so I feel like perhaps it would behoove us to have them report directly to us once a month, couple of times a semester, I don't know.
They're not our committee. They're
They're not.
the Board of Selectmen's committee. We are fortunate to have 3 board members on it, but they're not our committee.
Can a selectman come?
Because we used to have a liaison from the Board of Selectmen, and they would like update us on all the things that they're doing, and that sort of got dropped, and I feel like maybe that's a missing component as well. I don't know if Seth wants to.
I'll ask the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Seth could ask the Board of Selectmen.
Seth, do you want to say that?
Yeah, thank you. The new school building committee is a town committee organized and chartered by the Board of Selectmen. The Polson project technically was kept within the Board of Ed and is a project of the facilities committee of the Board of Ed, but it's kind of jointly overseen because of the shared budgetary impact. So it's kind of like the new school building committee is.
I don't think Polson's ours then, if the I mean, this is, if the building committee went with the referendum, that's all Polson too then.
Yeah, it's all part of that.
It's the school building committee for this project is chaired by Gene Fitzgerald.
Okay,
It is Board of Selectmen committee. We have 3 Board of Ed members on it.
And that's the HVAC. There's 2 different committees. There's the new school building committee that is chaired by Graham Curtis. And that is to build, that was mostly to build and chartered to build Neck River School. There is another committee that's a town committee called the ad hoc town, no, I'm sorry. It's called the schools HVAC committee.
okay.
All right, and that has joint oversight over Polson HVAC and Daniel Hand HVAC. So I think part of the problem here is there's a lot of chefs, you know, in the kitchen, and it's hard to make a stew when you have too many chefs in the kitchen. So you know, I don't disagree that there may need to be a little bit more coordination at some points, and also better delineation, which I have raised, better delineation as between the different charges of those various committees. And I apologize, it was the Brown School project that we retained on our Board of Ed Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Seth.
Sure.
Steve, Steve.
Well, this has been an education.
Yeah,
So there's the good news and the bad news. The good news is we're gonna get pretty much everything we wanted within the budget that we can afford. That's the good news. The bad news is how the heck did the process go wrong that it went immediately to a design phase of $30 million to build the Cadillac without the value engineering and the preliminary work to know if that was what really is called for, you know.
Well, Steve,
I mean, there needs to be some analysis along the line in terms of how do we have a process that gives us what we want within budget before we go to referendums to the public, in my view.
Steve, can I answer that? I think there's a basic misunderstanding as to where we are in the process. The Polson stuff is still in like advanced early design phase. All this stuff was learned. You would expect to learn this stuff during design phase. And I think it's a little bit unfortunate that we're mischaracterizing this as an overrun. An overrun only occurs mid-project during the construction phase when money is being overspent. We're not anywhere near there. We haven't started the construction phase yet. The best way to characterize what we're dealing with here is a projected cost increase above what we thought it was going to cost through the design process. Okay, so we're catching it on time. It sounds bad, especially if you call it an overrun, but we're catching it all when you would hope to catch it. Necessity is the mother of invention, and I credit Peter and Ben for looking at this mess, because we had a couple tense meetings, public meetings, where we discussed how much more it was going to cost than what we anticipated. Some of it's because of inflation, supply chain issues, and some of it is because the design team was told, like Ben said, they were told, here's the problem, here's how you have to sign it, what's the price going to be? When we got the price back, we were like, holy what? And there were a couple tense meetings, and again, necessity became the mother of invention, where people were recharged to go back and look at it again. And through that process, and Ben coming on board, and Ben and Peter taking a fresh look at it, they came up with this amazing not only responsible, but excellent response that to totally redesign the project in advance of us spending anything other than, some of that money for design, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where we are now. So it's not unfortunate. It's actually, in my mind, it's fortunate.
Okay, thank you, Seth. One more quick,
A quick question.
input,
So,
then we'll wrap it
so
up.
Gilbane is our construction manager, but we don't have a contract with them? Is that?
So,
What I understood.
Gilbane's contract was in, I guess, what you would call the final stages of negotiation back in, July. But that was based on pre-construction services with a potential GMP at 15 million. When we realized when that contract was being negotiated was right around the time these cost estimates started coming in that were close to $30 million. And that's when we said, hey, let's stop. We don't want to sign a contract when we know we can't afford what the existing scope now is.
Right, and look, I agree. I would like to say thank you to both of you
Thank you.
for doing that.
Right.
Because I think if it weren't for the two of you taking it upon yourself to do a deeper dive into what was actually happening, I think we would have looked at a $30 million price tag.
Yeah.
And what concerns me is, and I'm not negative on Gilbane, but what concerns me about that is that if they're the construction manager on this and Collier behind them, then that legwork should have been done prior.
So to Gilbane's credit, they immediately started working on validating all the estimates that were in place when they onboarded. And they're actually the ones that raised the red flag and said, hang on a second, this is not doable for what you have.
So
So,
this is
yeah.
ground for confidence, so
Yes.
it's been a really good presentation, and we should celebrate the good news. There's some
So we
really
all need to.
valid procedural questions that have been addressed, and you should do a better job of reporting and keeping people abreast. I completely agree with that. They say all projects go through 6 phases: enthusiasm, disillusionment, panic, search for the guilty, and punishment of the innocent. And, so
Where are we in that?
I'm not quite sure, but we should celebrate the good news that we're under budget with a better customer experience for the town. Thanks to.
But this was awesome.
So thank
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
so
Great.
helpful.
Great solutions.
Presented it in a way that was digestible. I appreciate that. Thank you both.
You have it right.
Just count out the other updates. I think.
Okay. All right, I kind of lost back. Where are we now?
I don't even know.
I'm complete, my report is complete. Thank you very much.
Good report. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, good job.
Thank you, audience.
Thanks.
If there are no further, do any board members have any additional comments on what we've covered?
Yeah, I do. I would like the breakdown of the 1.2
Yes,
million.
right, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
For that. Yeah. Great. And then is there any audience response to information presented? Heather, like.
I'm sure that is.
Okay, all right. So at this stage, if there's general consent, I would like to call for a motion to move an agenda item around. Specifically, I'd like to switch places. If we take a look at action item number 16, which is to go into discuss and take action on the Madison Education Association collective bargaining agreement in effect from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2029. I would like to see if I can get a motion to move that agenda item to number 7 before the consent agenda, and then to renumber all the following items. So this way we can wrap up Heather's night.
Heather can go home. So moved.
Okay,
Second.
so we have good. So we have
A motion to move it.
a motion to move it. All right.
Yes.
Is there any
Second.
second? Great, thank you. Is there any discussion on this?
To avoid renumbering the rest, you could call it whatever number B.
Okay, thank you. Let's
Wherever you
make
place
that.
it, so you
Okay,
you
thank
don't have to go through the rest of the night having to.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
No, let's have an action item for this one.
All right. Okay, and so all in favor of moving that agenda item and labeling it to 6B, I suppose. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay, seeing none, motion carries 8-0. And at this stage, we need to propose the actual motion. Do I have a motion to discuss and take action on the Madison Education Association collective bargaining agreement? This discussion is proposed for executive session.
So moved.
So moved. Oh, actually also,
Invite.
yeah, we need to invite the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Cook, and Director of Human Resources, Heather Dobson, to executive session.
So moved.
So moved, Diane. Second. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I need to put the time in.
Okay, and it is at
8:41.
8:41. Thank you, Zoe. All right.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Seeing none, motion carries 8-0. All right, so we will now enter executive session.
And I had a long train.
And we're back. All right, pardon?
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you. I'd like to have someone entertain a motion, to return to regular session at 8:55. Oh, my goodness. I'll go.
We're all good.
Kathy and,
Excellent.
I'll go with Kathy and with, Mary Ann. All right. We'll forego discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed nay, motion carries 8-0. Thank you. We are back in regular session. We need a motion to approve the Madison Education Association collective bargaining agreement for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2029. May I have a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Steve,
Second.
and thank you, Kathy. Any discussion? At this point, I'd like to thank all parties concerned, Dr. Cook, Heather Dobson, and our fabulous teachers, along with Gail. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. 8-0. All right. Now we resume our regular business of committee, well, the consent agenda. So action item number 7 is our consent agenda, which is in your packet. Consists of line item transfers, budget expenditures as of October 1st, 2024, and September 2024 personnel report. I hope everybody's had the opportunity to look at it. And if so, need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Diane. Is there any discussion or do we have questions about any items in the consent agenda? All right, so it's a good report. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries 8-0. And wouldn't you know, we had a very impactful day of committee meetings, for which we need reports. And starting with curriculum and student development chaired by Steve Penn.
Yes, we met this evening. I'll try and keep my report short to the point. There were 2 items on the agenda. The meeting was attended by Kathy Miller, Mary Ann Connolly, myself, and Seth on Zoom. First item was data collection and visualization. There was a presentation around the infinite campus that the district is using, has been using for 3 years, and it has been evolving. I would encourage people to look in their packet and look at the information that was presented. It's very comprehensive. There are numerous data points across the district, the bulk of it in the K through 3, but still many, I mean, 50, 60, 70 data points that are available and being used by our teachers, to some extent by students, and certainly by administrators. To cut to the chase on this issue, or this agenda item, you know, these things are presented as comprehensive data and information that comes back from assessment. But, you know, part of the comments I made in the meeting, and, you know, I've had the luxury of being able to sit down with Gail and see in great detail how this utilized. And the point is this is an incredibly important pillar to the overall umbrella or overall structure of how we do business in Madison and how we empower teachers to be able to have information at their fingertips that they can then rapidly adjust so that it picks up on students that are struggling, and it identifies kids that are excelling and allows adjustments all the way along the line on the curriculum that our teachers know. So I can't underscore enough how advanced this is and how important it is and how accessible it is and what an integral part it is to how we do learning and instruction in town. And I think is no small part and the success we're seeing in terms of student learning. The other item on the agenda was presented by the high school and the team on the NEASC site visit, which is coming up in November from the 17th to the 20th. Again, comprehensive, and I'm not going to go through all of the details. I will cut to the chase. It was very clear in the presentation that this is a process that TJ and his team and the teachers have fully embraced and gone into in great detail. And so it's a ton of work. You know, clearly they have the attitude that this is an opportunity for them to improve and continue to improve and learn, and they own it. And, you know, being a lifelong educator, I can tell you, NEASC visits for the most part are not embraced as a wonderful experience. For most, mostly it's a burden. The fact, and TJ pointed this out, that they engaged in this very time-consuming and intensive experience at the same time that they were identified as a blue ribbon school is really pretty extraordinary, because usually when schools get involved in the NEASC process, other things end up on the back burner. I won't go into all the details of what it covers. I mean, they went through 5 major phases of this process, and within your packet you will see the PowerPoint that will be presented to the visiting team when they come. But you know, all of the members of the committee, I think it's safe to say, left this presentation with a great deal of confidence that this visit is going to go very well. And the team is fully prepared for it. So if there are any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them. Otherwise,
I have a question about November 17th. We have a Zoom meeting. I'm just,
Yeah.
what is that?
Sure, so they always offer the opportunity for the Board of Ed to meet with the visiting team before they even start the visit, so they're getting to town that day. Used to be in the afternoon, but I think with Zoom becoming so popular, they now do it. Maybe they found better attendance on a Sunday from the board administration. So it's really just an opportunity for the visiting committee to ask some questions of the board, hear from the board. Usually the chair would just kind of give a statement welcoming them to town, and you know, giving them some highlights, you know, like, so we kind of just welcome it. It'd be great if as many people can attend as possible. I know 7 o'clock on a Sunday's not great, but yeah, it's your chance to meet the committee before they do any work, which I think is
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, thank you. Yeah. We will send out a reminder.
Everyone shows up at 7.
And
Thank you.
and what is the next step with the blue ribbon? Is there a ceremony in Washington?
So there is a ceremony in Washington. What we would like to do is most likely before a regular board meeting or at some point have our local politicians come forward, anybody else, you know, maybe a reception, have a recognition for the high school, and then there'll be an event at the high school as well. So we're planning 2 events. Yeah. Oh, to Washington. So unfortunately, they have only invited 3 people, so it was very small.
We're setting our best.
We'll see him on Zoom.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, Emily, do you have anything from facilities?
I do. We had a special facilities meeting today. We had a tour at Brown School to sort of see the updates since last spring when we visited. I think I can say we were all really impressed. It looks beautiful. I mean, and even from the spring, you've heard updates before about all the flooring, the railings, the woodwork either is new or refinished, new lighting. The main hall, that long hall with the high ceilings just feels totally different. There's bright colors. there's things on the walls. The library is closed off with some really cute windows. There's seating areas sort of sprinkled out throughout the building. All new doors, new millwork. There's still some work there's a really great new area like by the gym entrance with some cute seating areas on either side, it's really remarkable. And
You have to see it.
you do have to see it, because I'm not, so hopefully we'll have some sort of opportunity for the public to come and see it, because it does really feel like a different school and very inviting, especially for younger learners. There is some more work to be done, new furniture in the library, work to the pre-K area, parking, playground for the younger students, but it's really great. And Peter was saying the value of what we got from this work is pretty amazing. So it was really fun, and couldn't be happier.
Feels like a new school. It's been like a completely different school, and it's so bright.
Yes.
And light and airy, and it's gonna, when it's all done, it's gonna be great. And they also showed us signs
Oh, yeah.
that they ordered that they're gonna put up, and it's gonna look so good. And I did say to Dr. Cook, it would be great if we could get like pictures of that or something, or some sort of like brief presentation, so that way it's on video and the public can view it via YouTube, and they can kind of see, you know, what's going on, like what the signs are gonna look like, and just some of the changes. And I know we
Yeah.
plan to have them invited to tour the school at some point, but
Would like the source do something like that too?
So we have local coverage that's very sparse. So we had our teacher of the year, we tried to have the source cover that, or the hats event we had, you know, student where we tried to have Christian be. Yeah, it's really been tough for us to do. Zoe, I should say, Zoe gives them a press release that basically is an article that they could just take their name off it and put their name on it, and it doesn't get picked up. So Ben Rayner, who was there for a while, is no longer there. We haven't been able to. So yes, but that would be, you're right, that would typically, be Brown School gets a facelift. It's
Even in the Shoreline Times, there are
We will try and get parents in.
Yeah.
parents. There's photos on the website, Facebook, they're updated, great,
Yes.
there's plenty of traffic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, like, we saw pictures today of the signs that are ordered, so like the signs are not there yet, you know.
Correct. Typically, I wouldn't post that until we actually have them. Right.
But sadly, I mean, just for everybody else, you know, like for
Yeah.
everybody, I think they put it in the newspaper, our local newspaper, it's a big thing.
We'll have to spread the word.
Yeah, we'll have to be,
We'll do it. And it's important.
All right, thank you, Emily. Thank you, everyone. Next up is the Finance Committee. We met on, I guess way back when, September 17th. Convened the meeting at 5:30. Emily and I were in attendance, as was Seth ex officio. Dr. Cook and Stacy Novitz, Finance Director, were also there. We had two main agenda items. The first was a draft calendar for the budget process. We are hoping, I know the central administration right now is under discussion. We are hoping to adopt and approve a budget calendar and guidelines at our next finance meeting, which is October 22nd. Present that for the full board. We have a firm deadline of November 15th to submit proposed budgets into the accounting system. And we'd like to have action by the board on an administration recommended budget by January 21st. The second item on the agenda was to discuss end of year balances, which at the time I believe were about 140,000 as of September 17th. That might be fixed. Dr. Cook informed us that the district is no longer eligible for about $100,000 in Title I funds. If I make a mistake, correct me along the way. And then we discussed the increased electricity costs for the current operating year. With an eye towards possible reductions next year with the new rooftop units at hand. When the Neck River School goes geothermal and when we close 3 buildings. There were no public comments that adjourned at 5:55. And report. All right, thank you. Next up would be the Personnel Committee. Maureen is not here, so I'll turn it over to Kathy.
We haven't been, no report.
There we go. Very successful conclusion to your hard work, yes.
Yeah, I
Hey,
know,
Well, I mean.
Galen, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, can we just real quick go back? I know Maureen's not here, but we really do need to thank the Personnel Committee and Heather and Craig and the union for the great job in negotiating that contract. So good job, everybody.
Yeah, no, thank you for the kick save, so. Thank you. All right, next up, would be a report from the Policy Committee.
We met on September 17th, and everything we discussed is actually in your packet this evening. We have a bunch of policies for rescission. We discussed 6080.21 bilingual instruction, 6080.21.1 English learner students, 6080.24.2 magnet schools, 6080.25 early childhood education, 6080.25.2 school readiness, 6110.2 classroom observations, 6130.7 animal dissection to section alternatives, 6141.312 migrant students, 6146.1 student assessment, 6161.3 comparability of services. You should have in your packet the notes with a policy summary from Shipman and Goodwin explaining the reasoning why the policies were recommended to be repealed or rescinded. And the policy committee agreed with Shipman and Goodwin and moved it forward to the board. That's why it's in your packet this evening. We also are recommending that we waive the second reading for these rescissions because it's very straightforward if you read your notes. Then we also discussed the following policies for rescind and replace. First policy was 5070, promotion, acceleration, retention. This policy was changed to number 6020 in the 6000 series and renamed to promotion and retention with revisions made. You'll see the notes in your packet. We discussed policy 5090.9, use of private technological devices by students. The policy itself had already been updated on June 6th of 23. So we were discussing the policy with missing my words. We were discussing the regulation. So the regulation is new. The policy was already passed in 23, and we were making them work together. So the regulation is new. It is in your packet. We don't vote on the regulation because that is something that Dr. Cook makes for us. Thank you, Dr. Cook. So I don't know if the policy itself is in the packet, but it was already passed. We're not doing anything to the policy. Just read and review the regulation. If you have any issues with the regulation, we can discuss it. Then we discussed policy 5120.4.2.4, Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, prohibitions of sex discrimination and sexual harassment. This policy is changed to 5120.5, prohibition of sex discrimination and sexual harassment. The revised policy and its revised updated regulation were discussed and reviewed. And again, we don't vote on the regulation, but we will be voting on the policy, but not tonight. It's a first read tonight. So 5070, 5120.4.2.4, and the next one, 4116.1, are all a first read for you this evening, not an action item. Policy 4116.1, sexual harassment. This policy and its associated regulation are renamed prohibition of sex discrimination, including sex-based harassment. Revisions were discussed. They are in your packet. Regulation is for your review. That's it. And then report.
And now we have
one for, we met on Thursday, September 12th. It was our opening meeting, went around the room, we had people there. I won't go into all names, the school districts there. And basically they started the meeting with the Marine Science Magnet School principal, presented two people, the teacher and a parent, the teacher of the year awards, and that was very nice. That's where we spent most of the of our meeting. And then we always have, of course, the executive director, Dr. Ryan Dowler, he did his presentation on the perspective of this year's winner. We'll see where it goes. We're meeting this Thursday.
all right, thank you, Brandon. Okay. Thank you. All right, so moving right along. Would like to well, actually I have 10. Just this needed to discuss the proposed administrative regulation for policy 5090.9, use of private technological devices by students.
Yes, so as Diane said, we are able to issue administrative regs without board approval, but we always run them by policy and then ultimately the board to make sure that they're in alignment and there's nothing, and they always are connected to a policy. So we wanted to share the proposed administrative reg, especially being on the fact it was cell phones and that's getting a lot of attention to kind of codify what our current practice is. And I think that this will be a year of review and monitoring of where that is right now. My thought is that we heard some great feedback from parents tonight that kind of recognize that we've made some changes, but also I think there's a push for us to look further. And so we'll certainly do that. I think that I want to review the comments some more, but I think we probably look at a survey going forward potentially to get some more information out there and probably get some more information from families where they see. And I think we have some other options too. I do know, I'll just share it with the board because one of the takeaways when I met with the committee, that Madison Unplugged committee, I told them, I said, I'm meeting with some superintendents in September that have instituted the Yonder packets. Let me talk to them and see how that's going. And for many of them, they weren't able to receive the packets yet, even though they purchased them for the start of school because they're such high demand. And I'm not sure that that's the right answer for us. I think that we'll have to look at that, but I'm anxious to hear how that's going. And New Canaan and Wilton were two of the districts I plan to talk to, and they haven't been received yet. So we'll see. But we are getting some positive feedback from students and from staff about the changes we made specifically in Polson and PM for this year. And so I would look to issue this administrative reg. As you know, we can update the administrative reg. So if the board ever took action or we took further action and I updated you and we had that discussion, I can issue the administrative reg pretty much immediately. It doesn't, it requires we would have a board meeting, but we would have to have 2 votes, right? It's I think that's the right way to move forward with a regulation.
We just wanted it as an agenda item. It was actually before we decided to have the public forum, because we wanted it to be something that the board could openly discuss. And then it would invite public comment and kind of a public view what our current policy is. But I would like to just highlight a couple of things on the regulation, just listening to the comments that were made by the public. When you came up with the regulations, I know that you discussed with the administration, the different levels within the cell phone policy. If you review the regulation, you can see that pre-K to 5, and it was meant that it was done that way on purpose so that it's ready going forward for next year when it's pre-K to 5. So it encompasses sort of multiple schools this year. So it's pre-K to 5, and then the middle school 6 to 8, and then the high school 9 to 12. And it's different levels of cell phone restriction. And so I wanted to comment one that when some people were saying that you should talk directly to the teachers and administrators, you do. Dr. Cook does. And so when he came up with these regulations, and the same with the policies that are in the student handbooks, this wasn't like, Dr. Cook just came up with it on his own. So, we do have input, not only from Shipman and Goodwin, our lawyers, and state statute, how they're recommending, what their recommendations were for adopting a policy, which we already had done. But also from our administrators and our teachers, the input is all there. And then just noting that, because I don't know if a lot of parents that were here tonight, they have children that are at different levels. And so if you have a child who's in, a K to 4 school, you may be completely unaware of what the middle school policy is or the high school policy is, because it doesn't actually concern you at the moment. And they are different. And then Dr. Cook and I had discussed and the policy committee, when we were talking about the regulations and the policy, was that, you know, if you look at the pre-K to 5, it actually says they're discouraged from bringing cellular phones and devices to school. But it's also on the school bus. And then we also discussed that there's really no way for us to enforce this. We're not asking bus drivers to be like, put that phone away, you know? And so I would say, being devil's advocate, that parents tell your children what the rules are and enforce them at home. You know, your kids will listen to you, hopefully. Because we don't want the teachers being the administrators of policing the cell phone policy. So I totally get what they're saying. On one hand, you know, you want your kid to have a cell phone. On the other hand, you don't want them to use it. So, been there, done that. But at the same time, if you don't want your child to use a cell phone, don't give them one. Don't let them bring it to school. That's an option. And I'm putting that out there because instead of laying everything on our district and saying, make a good policy and enforce it, as a parent, I know you got to do that at home as well. And so I think it's a cooperation between the parents and the schools and the administration and the Board of Ed. Everyone's doing their best, but I think that everyone needs to take partial responsibility as well.
So what will be the next step?
I think it's, in my opinion, it's to follow how this is going this year, as I shared, you know, we tightened things up. And then to get more input. So one of the things I struggle with is to take a more restrictive stance, specifically at the high school, when our high school students have done everything we've asked them to do up to this point. So last year, when we were lax year, our student rep, they were lax, but this year, as we've been more restrictive, they've been more restrictive. I've noticed a difference in that. And I think we have other steps maybe in between even, you know, so I think it's just really to monitor where we're at. The state may take it up again, and maybe the state looks to, you know, pull out restriction. That was Lamont's, you know, direction that he was looking at.
Right, and would you do a survey, you said?
A survey to get, you know, because I think, you know, and we heard in writing, and then at least one parent spoke about, you know, not changing the policy, but I think often tonight brings out parents mostly interested in the ban of the cell phone. So I think that's, but you know, as I shared, the group has been very kind with sharing information. We've had good meetings with them. They've communicated directly with some of our principals. I mean, it's really been good. I've learned a lot. I think that we've shared, you know, I think that we would like to even look at maybe some joint efforts to educate the public, provide, you know, we've done internet safety before and it hasn't always brought out a large crowd. So maybe partnering with them on that would be pretty helpful. You know, so we're looking at some things we can work together on. And you heard from several of them tonight, they're like, well, we'll maybe consider for the budget. So they're talking about a year from now. They're not talking about,
Yeah.
you know, us instituting something for November 1. And I was glad Diane said the bus thing too, because I know that was mentioned. We could never ask bus drivers to do anything more than they already doing,
Yep.
especially with cell phones. So I think once the student leaves the school, whether it's sitting out front, walking around, you know, or on the bus, I think that we cannot really regulate that. We can't regulate that. I mean, if we have an issue on the bus with a cell phone, principal's dealing with it, but they're dealing with it retroactively, you know, they're able to set.
Yeah, I just want to say that I greatly appreciate everybody who came out tonight to the public input session right before this meeting, and I honor and respect and understand and empathize with the position that Madison Youth Unplugged is taking as an organization. It's a difficult situation, but I think as a board, first of all, it's important that we for now take a position of allowing the administration through regulation rather than policy to experiment a little bit here and to gain a little bit more experience. I think we are We placed the administration has placed the fulcrum where it needs to be for now. And like Craig said, like Dr. Cook said, reassess down the road. But I also feel that, you know, one of the charges we have as a board is to prepare students for the jobs and the world and the colleges that they're going to enter after they graduate from our care. And one of the things that we have to recognize is that, you know, the mobile phone, the watch, whatever, it's technology. Technology can be both good and bad, you know, like we're learning about AI right now, and how to grapple with that. And as we're trying to, you know, I think we're trying to get our arms around how to limit the negative aspects of that technology, and at the same time allow our students to benefit from the technology so that they're not left behind when they get to the next stage of their life after graduation. And so, you know, I think we need to recognize that it may be social media that is more problematic than the actual phone, even when you're talking about the dopamine hit of, you know, the phone dinging and you have to go look at it. It's not really the phone itself. It's it's the message you're expecting to get when you get that notification that creates the dopamine hit. And so, you know, I think we need to be careful to make that distinction. And I think we might even have, and I think Stephen, Gail, you know, there may be a way of looking at this where we have a responsibility as a board and a district toward digital, teaching our graduates digital citizenship, like we do with trying to help them understand how to be critical consumers of information online. So, you know, again, long story short, I think it's good that we keep it a regulation for now. But I do think we owe it to our students to consider more than just the immediate backlash from the Jonathan Haidt book and from lived experience. Truly, you know, I have 3 daughters, and believe me, I understand what social media and the mobile phones can cause a lot of chaos. But at the same time, I think we kind of also have to look at the other side of it and maintain an even keel as a board in recognizing our overall duty holistically to our students.
Thank you, Seth. Diane?
I just have 2 points. The first is that if you read the policy is more about digital use expectations, about the expectation of privacy when you're utilizing school resources, about cyberbullying, etc. And then the regulation is completely separate. The regulation is more about the actual use of the cell phones, etc. in schools. So they kind of cover 2 different aspects of the same thing. And so you're right, we have the regulation to do one, but you still need the policy to do the other. That's my first point. My second point is that, and I do agree that the current generation has much more difficulty in their social interactions in person. But I would have to say, anyone who has listened in or sat in on the curriculum and student development committee, if you've listened to the presentations, these kids are they're not in the classroom, they are doing social interactions. They are discussing, they are presenting opinions, they are having arguments and counter arguments, and they're doing it in respectful ways. And my daughter was very informative for all the classes that she took. I really knew what was going on in the courses that she took when she went to school here, which she's graduating now. Anyway, so I have to say that I know from firsthand experience through her that this is happening in the classes. They are communicating, they are learning this social interaction. Whether or not they're carrying that to their outside world through, you know, athletics or clubs or their, you know, personal interactions with their friends, is another story. We don't regulate that, but they are getting that in our curriculum, and I just wanted to say that.
Steve?
I agree with a lot that has been said, and I agree with Diane. You know, this falls in a number of wheelhouses, not just the school, certainly parents and others. But I would make this connection. We as a board, if there's one thing that we have prioritized over the last couple of years, it has been the mental health and the well-being of our students, based on the reports that we've gotten from Madison Youth Family Services. The correlation in terms of the timing and the incredible increase in anxiety and depression and suicidal, you know, has been a relatively short-term increase that, you know, more and more research speaks to beyond just COVID. So is it a crisis? It is absolutely a crisis, and one that needs our attention. Increasingly, we're seeing correlations that the causes of this is the significant changes that happen in society, and a huge part of it is social media, particularly for young women and so forth. Now, that being said, you know, does that make me an advocate, you know, for, you know, immediate restrictive policies? No. Having been a high school principal for years and years, I see an opportunity. First, I agree with you. I mean, our students continue to demonstrate that they're extraordinary. This is a real issue. It is one they are suffering under, and they're getting casualties, but they are also a tremendous resource. This is an issue that should be very firmly put back with students and have their voice and their participation, you know, along with their education in terms of how do we address this. You know, if I sit here concerned, I mean, I would like to do a visit to the lunchroom at Daniel Hand and see what we see. If we see interaction or whatever, but beyond the adults and the board taking that, that's a conversation with students for us to share with them. This is our worry. This is our concern. This is the data we're getting from Madison Youth and Services. This is what students are telling us. How do we as a community tackle this problem in a way that is going to impact it? Because, you know, my fear is we look out and we go, we've got a mental health crisis, but we're not sure why. And so what we're going to do is going to have more supports, and, you know, and what we really should be looking at is what is causing this and how do we as a community address it. And that's what the community is telling us. You know, we got a big issue. You know, do I think schools are gonna solve it? No, but we have a part in it. Well, you know.
All right, well, thank you. That was good. I'd like to thank Dr. Cook for a very thoughtful responses to the ongoing issue.
How expensive are those couches?
I've been told, I know, I'm very familiar with how they work, been on the website, things like that. Never asked for a quote, but Madison Youth Unplugged told me they estimate it'd be $40,000 for us.
But is it necessary to get that brand and that, like, it felt like, I've seen other schools do, like, the kids have a pouch and it gets put into a basket in the morning and it has their name on it, they know their pouch. I mean, does it have to be the Yonder pouch?
I think there's other options for us. I mean, so middle school kids use lockers, they use lockers. High school kids, this has changed, they don't use lockers anymore.
No.
But they all are assigned a locker, so we could ask them to lock in the locker, you know, I think that's an option. So I think
You get a huge pushback from that though.
that might be different. Yeah, I think there's something about keeping it on, but then also
So
it's
the
still
Yonder
vibrates,
pouch
you
isn't
know.
quite
so-
very Yonder, it's on them.
Yeah, so they have their own, so you come in with your own pouch that says Kathy on it. put your phone in it, gets locked as you walk through the security desk in the morning.
Does it prevent receiving signal?
So they're getting.
So they're getting vibrator stuff.
Yeah, so you're told to put it off, you know, or on mute, but
Interesting.
yeah, and you only can unlock it at a machine, so you might have them different areas, different exits or something like that, entrances. So,
It could cause more anxiety if you hear your phone buzzing or feel your phone buzzing and you can't get into it, so.
I don't know, I think it's worth looking at, like,
yeah,
there's, I'm sure by the time we're ready to,
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be other things.
all kinds of stuff,
yeah,
so,
I just thought it.
that's good.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm done, Gail.
All right, well, it's a good discussion. All right, next up is, we need a motion to waive the second reading and the city following policies that were previously discussed, and I'll just list them quickly. 6080.21 bilingual instruction, 6080.21.1 English learner students, 6080.24.2 magnet schools, 6080.25 early childhood education, 6080.252 school readiness, 6110.2 classroom observations, 6130.7 animal dissection alternatives, 6141.312 migrant students, 6146.1 student assessment, and lastly, 6161.3 comparability of services.
So
So moved, Diana, do we have a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, so to waive and rescind those policies, do we have any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll call it for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Nays, no abstentions, motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Here's a nice motion to make. A motion to approve a very generous donation from the Jeffrey PTO, the Jeffrey Elementary School, in the amount of $10,000 to support field trips and subscriptions.
So moved. Second.
All right, thank you, Emily and Diane. Any discussion or recognition?
Thank you, PTO.
Thank you.
Wow,
Oh, Jeffrey.
that's amazing, like
Mhm.
fundraising. That's an amazing contribution.
Great, right, definitely. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, abstains, none. Okay, nothing. Next up would be a motion, to approve the minutes of September 3rd, 2024 Board of Education meeting. Thank you, Emily. Second. Thank you, Steve. I hope you forgive me before I go to discussion. Diane? Good, okay,
I'm gonna abstain, because I left the
Okay.
meeting early, so
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries. 8-0.
abstain,
Abstain, thank you.
7,
Set it Thursday,
701.
there we go. All right, we have a motion. Could we please have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 17th, 2024 Board of Education meeting?
So
Second.
Stephen.
All right, Steve. Diane. Would anybody like to make corrections for the record or discuss anything?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed, none, abstentions, none, motion carries 8-0. Our next item, number 15, is a motion to approve the minutes of the October 1st, 2024 Board of Education retreat.
So moved.
Thank you, Diane.
second.
Emily, thank you. Is there any discussion?
Thought it was good.
I thought it was a very good meeting. Yeah. Thanks for being a bit happy.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I'll abstain.
Oh, thank you, Christine. All right.
Me too.
Okay, all right. So we have motion carries 6-2 with 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. And are there any future agenda items that people would like to bring to attention? Email is always open. Next up would be a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. Second, Kathy. The meeting is adjourned at 9:40.
All in favor? Vote.
Bye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you, Seven.
Thank you.
Thanks.